chosen one. Right now, somewhere in a dimly lit room, someone is scrolling through your life with trembling fingers. Their heart races as they see your transformation. The glow they once dismissed now burns their retinas through a screen. This is the moment where divine justice meets human regret. The universe is settling accounts, and the currency is truth. They asked everyone about you after they walked away. Every single person told them the same thing. You were the best thing that could have happened to them. Now they sit in the wreckage of their own arrogance, looking like absolute fools. The cosmic joke writes itself in their sleepless nights. You are the punchline they never saw coming. The story begins months ago, maybe years. Time blurs when betrayal cuts that deep. They had you right there, fully present, fully invested. Your energy poured into them like liquid gold into a cracked vessel. Every morning you chose them again. Every night you silenced the voice that whispered something was off. The divine had placed you in their path as a test. Not for you, for them. The universe wanted to know if they could recognize real when it stood before them without a price tag or an instruction manual. They failed spectacularly. First came the doubts they planted in your mind. Small seeds at first. Questions about your worth disguised as concern. They wondered aloud if you were asking for too much. A text back within reasonable time. Consistency that matched their promises. Basic respect wrapped in common decency. These became mountains in their mouth. Impossible requests from someone they painted as needy. Behind your back they conducted their investigation. They asked mutual friends, distant acquaintances, anyone who might offer insight into who you really were. The responses came back unanimous. Every single person sang the same song. That one is special. That one is rare. You better not mess this up. You won't find another like that. They're the real deal. Loyal to a fault. Heart of pure gold. The kind of person you marry, not play with. But prophecies mean nothing to those drunk on their own ego. They collected these testimonies like evidence they would never use, filed them away in the back of their mind where truth goes to die. Because accepting what everyone said would mean accepting that they were the problem, that their standards were actually low while pretending to be high, that their fear of real intimacy was masquerading as independence, that their emotional unavailability was dressed up as mysterious depth. The universe watched them gather this evidence, watched them ignore every warning sign. Not the warnings about you, the warnings about themselves. Every friend who said you were amazing was actually telling them they weren't ready for amazing. Every confirmation of your value was actually exposing their inability to handle something valuable. But mirrors are hard to look at when you've spent years avoiding your own reflection. They had already decided you were too much, too intense with your love, too clear with your boundaries, too strong in your sense of self. They needed someone easier to manipulate, someone who would shrink at their command, someone whose light could be dimmed to make their darkness feel like shade. You were none of those things. You were fire that refused to be contained, thunder that wouldn't be silenced, a storm that moved with divine purpose. The games began subtly, testing your limits to see how much inconsistency you would tolerate, pushing boundaries to measure your breaking point. They wanted to establish control through controlled chaos, reply to messages late to make you anxious, cancel plans to test your patience, create distance to see if you would chase. They were conducting experiments on your heart, like it was a laboratory specimen. But something in you started recognizing the pattern. Not consciously at first. Your soul knew before your mind caught up. You felt it in the exhaustion that followed their presence, the way peace returned when they left, the anxiety that preceded their texts. Your body was keeping score, even when your heart was making excuses. The divine was sending signals through your nervous system, warning lights flashing in places your love kept trying to dim. So they created distance, calculated space designed to make you chase. They pulled back just enough to watch you lean forward. They wanted to see you break, to watch you beg, to witness the moment your strength crumbled into desperate need. They wanted proof that you were just like everyone else they had conquered before. Weak when tested, fragile when abandoned, desperate when ignored. The silence they manufactured was supposed to be your undoing. They had seen this movie before with others, the panic that sets in after day 3, The desperate text on day 5. The emotional breakdown by week 2. They waited for your surrender like generals wait for white flags. They prepared their gracious return speech, the one where they would take you back but with new terms, terms that centered their needs while minimizing yours. But something unexpected happened in that silence. You stopped reaching, not with anger or dramatics. You simply stopped. The phone stayed silent. The texts went unsent. The explanations died in your throat before they could embarrass you further. You understood finally what the divine had been trying to show you. This was not your person. This was your lesson. The pain wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Every tear was washing away an illusion. Every sleepless night was detoxing you from an addiction to potential that would never materialize. The first few days were hell dressed as abandonment. You questioned everything. Your worth, your intuition, your standards. Maybe you really were too much. Maybe your expectations were unrealistic. Maybe love was supposed to feel like anxiety dressed in affection. The gaslighting they had done was so effective that you started lighting matches against yourself. But the divine intervened in your self-destruction, sent messages through songs, through random conversations, through posts that felt written specifically for your situation. Slowly, the truth emerged from the fog of their deception. You weren't asking for too much. You were asking the wrong person. You weren't too intense. You were too real for someone who preferred performance. You weren't too demanding. You were too clear for someone who thrived in confusion. The problem was never your standards. The problem was their inability to meet even the basement level of what love actually requires. The second phase arrived like a thief in the night. Your transformation began in private, where real power always builds. No announcements, no revenge posts, no public displays of your pain. You went underground, into the sacred cave of self-reconstruction. The divine met you there in the darkness, not with comfort, but with truth. You weren't too much. You were just too much for them. Your standards weren't too high. Their effort was too low. Your love wasn't too intense. Their capacity was too shallow. In that cave, you discovered something that changed everything. The pain they caused wasn't random. It was surgical, designed to remove illusions you had been carrying about love, about worth, about what you deserved versus what you had been accepting. Every wound they inflicted was actually the universe performing necessary surgery, removing toxic patterns, extracting generational curses, excavating trauma bonds you had mistaken for connection. The reconstruction wasn't pretty. You had to face parts of yourself you had been avoiding, the part that accepted less because it was familiar, the part that mistook intensity for intimacy, the part that confused chaos with chemistry, the part that had been programmed to earn love through endurance. These weren't just patterns. They were possessions, entities that had been living rent-free in your psyche, sabotaging every attempt at healthy connection. While you rebuilt in silence, they celebrated what they thought was freedom. They filled your absence with easier prey, people who didn't challenge them, partners who accepted crumbs and called it a feast. They surrounded themselves with mirrors that reflected back exactly what they wanted to see. No depth, no challenge, no growth, just empty validation from empty vessels. If this message hits your spirit, hype this video so more chosen ones like you can find it. The parties got louder but felt quieter. The connections multiplied but felt lonelier. They were collecting people like trophies, but trophies don't keep you warm at night. They don't answer the phone at 3 a.m. when anxiety attacks. They don't see through your performance to the pain underneath. They don't hold space for your transformation because they're too busy maintaining their own facade. Every new person they met got compared to you without them realizing it. The way someone laughed, too forced compared to your genuine joy. The way someone listened, too distracted compared to your full presence. The way someone loved, too conditional compared to your unlimited devotion. They didn't consciously make these comparisons. Their soul did it automatically, like a computer running background programs they couldn't shut off. But the universe has a sense of humor darker than midnight. Your name kept coming up, in conversations they didn't expect, in rooms they thought were safe, in moments when they tried to forget you existed. Everyone had something to say about you, how you were doing amazing things, how you looked better than ever, how you seemed to glow with a peace that made no sense considering what you had been through. The reports were consistent. You hadn't just survived, you had thrived in ways that defied logic. At first they dismissed these reports. People exaggerate, social media lies, everyone posts their best moments, but the reports kept coming, from different sources, different contexts, different perspectives, all saying the same thing. You were different, not just better, transformed, like something had been activated in you that couldn't be turned off. A light had been switched on that made everything around you brighter. They started investigating, casually at first, a quick check of your social media, but what they saw disturbed them. This wasn't the broken person they had expected to find. This wasn't someone drowning in bitterness. This was someone who had found something they never knew existed: peace without them, joy without them, success without them, love without them, not from someone else, from yourself, the kind of love that doesn't require external validation because it generates its own energy. Meanwhile, they began to feel the weight of what they had done, not guilt exactly. People like that don't feel guilt the way you do. They feel consequences. The new relationships lacked substance. Every conversation felt like an echo of something better they once had. Every intimate moment felt hollow compared to the depth you brought. They had traded a feast for fast food, and now their soul was starving. The comparison became unbearable, not because they wanted to compare, because they couldn't stop. Every person they touched felt cold compared to your warmth. Every conversation felt surface compared to your depth. Every connection felt forced compared to your flow. They were trying to recreate a frequency they had rejected, trying to find your channel on radios that couldn't pick up your signal. The third act began when they started checking on you indirectly. Never directly. Cowards never approached directly. They used fake accounts. They asked mutual friends. They drove by places they thought you might be. They became detectives investigating their own crime scene. What they found disturbed them more than your anger ever could have. You were thriving without them. Not the fake thriving people post about. Real, sustainable, undeniable elevation. Your energy had changed, not bitter. Something worse for them, indifferent. You had moved beyond revenge into something they couldn't touch. Peace, real peace. The kind that comes from understanding that some people are meant to be lessons, not life sentences. You had graduated from their university of pain with honors they could never achieve. The whispers started reaching them more frequently. Everyone they asked about you said the same thing. You were the best. Past tense became present tense in their mouth. You are the best. They tried to correct the narrative, tried to explain their side, tried to paint you as the problem, but truth has a way of surviving every lie told about it. People saw through their revisionism. Everyone knew what they had lost. Some even said it to their face. After a few drinks, when truth serum kicked in, their friends would mention it. You fumbled bad with that one. That was the one, wasn't it? You'll never find another like that. These comments landed like punches they couldn't block, each one a reminder of what everyone could see except them, or rather what they had seen but chosen to ignore. This is when the haunting began. Not supernatural, worse, natural consequences arriving right on schedule. Every time they tried to move forward, your ghost stood in the way. Not your actual presence, your absence. The space you left couldn't be filled because it was carved specifically for your energy. They tried forcing others into your shape. It never worked. Square pegs in a round hole that you had carved into their existence. The haunting had specific triggers. A song that you loved playing in a public place. Someone wearing your signature scent. A phrase you used to say coming from a stranger's mouth. These moments ambushed them in broad daylight, made them lose their composure in public, made them excuse themselves from conversations to catch their breath. You were everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Sleep became their enemy. The hours between 2 and 5 a.m. turned into torture chambers. That's when the full weight of their choice would descend. No distractions, no noise, no people to perform for, just them and the truth they spent all day running from. They had discarded gold for glitter, and now the glitter was choking them. The fourth phase arrived with attempts at contact. Subtle at first, a reaction to your story, a response to something you posted, testing the waters to see if you would engage. You didn't. Your silence spoke louder than any response could have. You had learned the ultimate power move, indifference, not performed indifference, real bone-deep disconnection from their existence. They escalated, the "I've been thinking about you" message, the "hope you're doing well" text, the "you crossed my mind today" lie. Each attempt bounced off your armor of absence. You had become unreachable, not because you blocked them, because you had transcended them. You existed now in a realm they couldn't access, a frequency they couldn't tune into, a dimension where their currency held no value. The messages they sent went unread, not because you were playing games, because you genuinely had better things to do. Your life had become so full that their attempt at re-entry didn't even register as important. You weren't ignoring them, you had forgotten them, not in anger, in evolution. They had become irrelevant to your journey, a closed chapter in a book you were no longer reading. The realization hit them like divine lightning. They had asked everyone about you after the fact. Everyone had told them the truth. You were the best thing that would ever happen to them. And they had thrown it away for what? For the illusion of better options, for the false promise of freedom, for the ego boost of feeling desired by many, while being truly loved by one. The mathematics of their mistake became clear. They had traded one person who would have given them everything for multiple people who gave them nothing. They exchanged depth for surface area, quality for quantity, a home for a series of hotel rooms, a feast for a buffet of empty plates. The abundance they thought they were choosing turned out to be scarcity dressed in variety. Now they sat in their self-created prison, surrounded by everything they thought they wanted, feeling nothing they actually needed. The variety they chased turned out to be variations of emptiness. The freedom they sought became isolation. The options they collected became obligations. They had everything and nothing simultaneously. The fifth act unfolded in their quiet moments. 3 a.m. became their enemy. That's when your memory attacked most viciously. Not the fights, not the ending, the good times, the depth of connection they had carelessly discarded, the conversations that went until sunrise, the understanding that required no words, the peace of being fully known and still completely accepted. They had that. They had you, and they chose to walk away. The memories came in waves, triggered by the smallest things, the way morning light hit their window. You used to love morning light, the smell of coffee brewing. You took yours with 2 sugars, the sound of rain. You would make them dance in it. These memories weren't just recollections, they were hauntings, ghosts of a life they had murdered with their own hands. They tried to share these experiences with others, tried to recreate the magic, but it always fell flat. The new people didn't get the references, didn't understand the inside jokes, didn't have the context that made ordinary moments extraordinary. They were trying to perform a play without the lead actor. Every scene felt incomplete, every line fell flat, every moment missed its mark. Every relationship after you became a comparison study in inadequacy. They kept searching for your qualities in other people, your depth in shallow waters, your authenticity in performers, your genuine care in transactional arrangements, your spiritual connection in surface-level attractions. Nobody measured up because nobody was you, and everyone they asked knew it. The search became desperate. They would meet someone new and immediately scan for your attributes. Did they laugh like you? Did they listen like you? Did they love like you? The answer was always no. Not because these people were inadequate, because they were different, but different felt wrong when what they actually wanted was you. They were shopping for replicas of an original they had discarded. The worst part for them wasn't the loneliness, it was the knowledge. Knowing they had been warned, knowing they had been told, knowing everyone saw what they refused to acknowledge. You were the one, the actual one. Not perfect, but perfect for them. Not flawless, but exactly what they needed to grow into who they were meant to become. They had been handed a winning lottery ticket and used it as scratch paper. This knowledge became their constant companion, following them into every interaction, every date, every attempt at connection. They would sit across from someone new and hear the echo of everyone who had told them about you. You're not going to find better. That one was special. You messed up. The chorus of truth they had ignored now played on repeat in their mind. The sixth phase brought desperate measures. They tried to recreate you in others, coached new partners to act like you, pushed them toward your interests, dressed them in your style. But authenticity cannot be replicated. Your essence wasn't something that could be taught or performed. It was cultivated through years of pain, growth, self-discovery, and divine alignment. They wanted your final form without honoring your journey. They would take new partners to places you had shown them, restaurants you had discovered, views you had shared, trying to overlay new people onto old memories, but it felt like sacrilege, like they were desecrating something sacred. The places that had once felt alive with your presence now felt haunted by your absence. They were touring the museum of their own mistakes. Meanwhile, you continued ascending, not to spite them. That would still be giving them power. You rose because that was always your destiny. They were never meant to be your ceiling. They were meant to be your stepping stone. The pain they caused wasn't meant to break you. It was meant to break you open, to release the power that was always dormant within you, to activate the chosen one frequency you were always meant to broadcast on. Your rise wasn't loud. It was substantial. You didn't announce your moves. You just moved. You didn't broadcast your healing. You just healed. You didn't perform your growth. You just grew. And the universe responded to your authenticity with opportunities they could never access. Doors opened that they didn't even know existed. Levels unlocked that they couldn't even perceive. People started noticing the shift in you. Not just external success, internal radiance. You moved differently, spoke differently, existed differently. The wound they left had become a portal. Through it, divine energy flowed into every area of your life. What they meant for evil, the universe used for your elevation. Their betrayal became your breakthrough. Your presence changed rooms now, not through effort, through energy. You had become someone who didn't need to announce their value. It radiated from you like heat from a flame. People felt it before you spoke, saw it before you moved, recognized it before you introduced yourself. You had become what you were always meant to be, yourself, fully, unapologetically, magnificently. The seventh act revealed the true comedy. They looked dumb, not because you made them look that way, because their own choices did. Everyone they had asked about you had given them the same answer. You were the best. They ignored collective wisdom for individual stupidity. They traded diamonds for rhinestones, and then wondered why nothing sparkled anymore. The joke wasn't just on them. It was them. They had become the cautionary tale in their own circle, the example of what not to do when you find someone real. Their friends referenced their mistake when giving relationship advice. Don't pull a them. Don't fumble like they did. Their failure had become a verb in conversations about lost opportunities. Their social circles began to notice. The downgrade was obvious to everyone except them. They defended their choices with increasing desperation, tried to convince others and themselves that they were happier now. But happiness doesn't require that much convincing. Real joy doesn't need a marketing campaign. Peace doesn't require press releases. Everyone saw through the performance. The performance exhausted them. Pretending to be happy, pretending to have moved on, pretending you didn't matter, pretending the new situations were better. The mask got heavier every day, the script harder to remember, the character more difficult to play. They were method acting in their own life, and the role was killing them slowly. You became the story they couldn't tell honestly. When people asked what happened between you two, they stumbled over fabricated narratives. The truth was too embarrassing. They had fumbled the best thing in their life because they thought they deserved better while bringing less. They had rejected a feast because they were addicted to hunting for crumbs. Every version of the story they told made them look worse. If they told the truth, they looked stupid. If they lied, they looked petty. If they stayed quiet, the truth spoke for itself through your obvious evolution and their obvious decline. There was no angle that made them look good because there was no angle where they had made a good decision. The eighth phase brought the full weight of realization. This wasn't temporary. You weren't coming back. There would be no reunion, no second chance, no redemption arc where they got to fix what they broke. You had moved on in a way that was final, not bitter, not angry, just done. Completely, thoroughly, irreversibly done. They tried to hate you for it, tried to paint you as cold, unforgiving, harsh, but hate requires energy, and you weren't giving them any. Not positive, not negative, nothing. You had become a void in their existence, a black hole where their access used to be. They threw emotions at you that disappeared into nothingness. You had mastered the art of energetic absence. Your absence was louder than any presence could be. It filled every room they entered. It sat in every empty chair. It echoed in every unanswered text. It lived in every unshared moment. You were gone in a way that made them feel your absence more than they had ever felt your presence. Because they had taken your presence for granted, your absence became undeniable. This is when the real haunting began. Not by your presence, by your absence. Every good thing that happened to them felt hollow because they couldn't share it with you. Every bad day felt worse because you weren't there to comfort them. Every moment of confusion felt darker because your wisdom was no longer available. They had banished their own lighthouse and now lived in permanent fog. They would achieve something noteworthy and instinctively reach for their phone to tell you. Then remember, you were gone. They would face a crisis and want your specific brand of comfort. Then remember, you were unavailable. They would encounter something that would have made you laugh. Then remember, you weren't there to share it with. Life became a series of moments that felt incomplete without your witness. The ninth act arrived with desperation, masquerading as growth. They started posting about learning and evolving, about becoming better, about understanding their mistakes. Performance art designed to reach you indirectly. They wanted you to see they had changed. But change without accountability is just rearranged furniture in a burning house. You saw through it all and kept walking. These posts were crafted specifically for your eyes. They knew you would see them, through mutual friends if not directly. Every word chosen to trigger your sympathy. Every image curated to show their growth. Every caption written to make you wonder if they had finally become who you needed them to be. But you weren't wondering. You weren't watching. You had unfollowed them in real life, not just online. Your silence became their torment, not because you planned it that way, because silence from someone who used to pour into you constantly feels like death. They experience withdrawal from your energy, physical symptoms, emotional instability, spiritual emptiness. They had been addicted to what you provided while taking it completely for granted. The withdrawal was real. They felt it in their body. Anxiety that medication couldn't touch, insomnia that exhaustion couldn't cure, a hunger that no amount of food could satisfy. They were experiencing the physical effects of losing someone who had been feeding their soul, someone whose energy had been sustaining them in ways they never acknowledged. Everyone around them saw the decline. The spark they once had dimmed, the confidence crumbled, the swagger turned to stumbling. They had derived more from your presence than they ever admitted. You had been their battery pack, their charging station, their source code. Without you, they glitched constantly. Friends started asking if they were okay. Family noticed the change. Co-workers mentioned they seemed different. Everyone could see what they were trying to hide. The light had gone out. The magic had disappeared. The special something that had made them attractive was gone, because that special something had been you, reflected in their energy. The 10th phase brought the ultimate realization. They hadn't just lost a person. They had lost access to a frequency. You operated on a wavelength they could only access through proximity to you. Your energy had elevated theirs simply by existing near them. Now cut off from that source, they operated at a lower vibration. Everything felt heavier, darker, harder. They tried to find that frequency elsewhere, searched for it in New Age practices, in other relationships, in substances, in achievements. But what you carried wasn't manufactured. It was cultivated through divine alignment. It was earned through spiritual warfare. It was gifted by the universe to those who proved worthy through trials. They wanted the prize without the process. Meditation couldn't give them what you had given naturally. Therapy couldn't replicate the healing your presence had provided. Success couldn't match the satisfaction of your approval. Nothing external could fill the internal void your absence had created. They were trying to replace the irreplaceable with the interchangeable. Meanwhile, your evolution accelerated. The energy you used to pour into them now poured into yourself. The love you once gave freely now watered your own garden. The support you offered them now held up your own dreams. Everything they had taken for granted became the foundation of your empire. You built something magnificent from the ashes of what they burned. Your empire wasn't just external success, it was internal sovereignty. You had become your own source, your own validation, your own home. The security you once sought in them, you now generated yourself. The love you once needed from them, you now produced independently. You had become self-sustaining in ways that made you truly dangerous to their ego. The 11th act exposed the full cosmic joke. They had consulted everyone about you after letting you go, like checking the reviews after returning a product. Every review was 5 stars. Every testimony was glowing. Every person confirmed what they were too arrogant to see. You were the best thing that would ever happen to them. The consultations had been extensive. They really wanted to make sure they weren't making a mistake. Friend after friend, family member after family member, even strangers who knew you, all saying the same thing. You're crazy if you let that one go. That's the kind of person people pray for. You won the lottery with that one. The universe had sent them profit after profit, and they had ignored them all. Now they live with that knowledge, daily, hourly, constantly. It plays on repeat in their quiet moments. It echoes in their empty bed. It whispers during their shallow conversations with shallow people. It screams during their fake laughter at unfunny jokes from uninspiring company. They know. Everyone knows. They fumbled the bag of a lifetime. The knowledge became torture. Not dramatic torture. Slow, persistent, undeniable torture, like water dripping on stone, every day wearing them down a little more. The truth that they had thrown away the best thing that would ever happen to them, and everyone had tried to tell them. Everyone had seen what they refused to see. Your name became synonymous with regret in their story. Not because you tried to make it that way, because that's what happens when you lose the best through your own stupidity. Every time someone asks about their romantic history, your chapter glows while everything else fades. You were the peak they'll spend forever trying to climb again. They started lying about why it ended, creating elaborate stories that painted them as the victim or the one who left. But lies require maintenance, stories need consistency, and they kept forgetting their own fiction, getting caught in contradictions, exposing themselves as unreliable narrators of their own life. The truth kept seeping through the cracks of their deception. The final act arrives with poetic justice. They now watch your life unfold from behind a screen, a spectator to the movie they could have starred in. They see your wins, your growth, your peace, your glow. Everything they could have been part of now happens without them. They're forced to witness the life they forfeited. Every post is a reminder. Every update, a slap. Every achievement a monument to their mistake. They watch you collaborate with people they could have met, travel to places they could have seen, build things they could have been part of. Your life became the ghost of their alternative timeline. The road not taken, the life not lived, but you don't even notice them watching. You've moved so far beyond their realm that their observation doesn't register. You exist now in spaces they can't reach, surrounded by people who match your frequency, engaged in purposes that align with your destiny, living a life that exceeds what you once imagined possible. Your indifference isn't performed, it's genuine. You don't think about them enough to hate them, don't remember them enough to forgive them. They've become a footnote in a story that's grown too large for their chapter to matter. They wanted to be your ending. Instead, they became a comma in your sentence, a brief pause before the real story began. The chosen ones always rise, not because it's easy, because it's written. The universe conspires to elevate those who are willing to walk through hell without becoming demons, You walked through their fire and emerged as light. You survived their storm and became electricity. You endured their winter and bloomed into eternal spring. Your rising wasn't revenge, it was destiny. You were always meant to reach these heights. They were just the weight you needed to drop to achieve liftoff. Their betrayal wasn't your destruction, it was your ignition. The pain they caused wasn't meant to end you, it was meant to begin you, the real you, the one who had been dormant under layers of trying to be enough for someone who couldn't recognize enough if it slapped them. Look, you already know the game is rigged, and if you're paying attention, you know the walls are closing in, so let's talk about what we're doing about it. When you live by the day at the market's command, where profit and property rule the land, to be heard, to be held, to be dealt a fair hand, these are the things that a people demand. And we hear you. The Obsidian Inner Order has paywalls. Yes. Those who stand with us, who fuel this mission, they give us ammunition to fight the Archons, to push back against the machine, to go deeper, to uncover more, and as our thank you, paid members get access to a 1-hour live, personalized weekly group tarot reading guidance, insight and clarity for the road ahead. But kicking a man for being down on the floor, that's something we cannot ignore. That's why starting today, you can steal the Astral Atom exclusive daily newsletter for free. No paywall, no catch, just join the Patreon free tier link in the description. This is the start of our conversation with you, and it's bi-directional. You can reply to any email we send you. We'll read it, we'll hear you, and we'll do our best to get an answer to you, from the universe itself. If you can support, we need you. If you can't, take what's free. The Obsidian Inner Order is open. Now let's get back to work. They asked everyone about you. Everyone told them you were the best. Now they look dumb. Not because you made them look that way, because they made themselves look that way. They had gold and traded it for glitter. They had a masterpiece and exchanged it for a sketch. They had the real thing and settled for an imitation of an imitation. The universe has a sense of humor about these things. It gives people exactly what they choose. They chose surface over depth, so they got shallow. They chose quantity over quality, so they got empty abundance. They chose ego over love, so they got validation that never validates. They chose games over growth, so they got players who play them better. This is your vindication, not revenge, something better. Indifference mixed with excellence. You don't need them to see your value anymore. Everyone else sees it. More importantly, you finally see it. You were always the best. You just needed them to leave so you could finally believe it. The leaving was the lesson, not the pain of it, the gift of it. They gave you the greatest present anyone could give. They removed themselves. They freed you from the prison of trying to be loved by someone incapable of loving correctly. They released you from the burden of carrying them toward a destination they never wanted to reach. Now they carry the weight of what they lost. Forever. That's their sentence. To know exactly what they had only after it's gone forever. To have everyone confirm their biggest mistake. To watch you thrive in ways they never imagined possible. To see you become everything they prevented you from being while you were with them. You were the test they failed. The blessing they cursed. The miracle they missed. The lottery they lost. The divine appointment they cancelled. The answered prayer they returned to sender. The upgrade they downgraded. The treasure they buried. The light they tried to dim. But light doesn't dim, it just finds somewhere else to shine. And sometimes in divine comedy, it shines so bright that those who rejected it have to spend the rest of their lives squinting. You became that light, not to hurt them, just by being yourself, fully, finally, fearlessly, and now you shine so bright that they need sunglasses just to scroll past your name. Your evolution burned away their access pass. Your elevation revoked their visitor's badge. Your transformation cancelled their subscription to your energy. They wanted space. Now they have all the space in the universe between you and them. The space they created became a chasm they can't cross. They built the bridge they burned. They dug the grave they lie in. They wrote the story where they're the villain. They directed the movie where they're the fool. They produced the show where they're the cautionary tale. Their own choices became their curse. The divine comedy writes itself in their regret. They conducted a survey after the breakup. asked everyone about you, got unanimous 5-star reviews, and now have to live with the knowledge that they had the best and chose the rest. They look dumb, not because that was your goal, because that was their choice. But here's what they'll never understand. You're grateful, not for the pain, for the lesson, for the push toward your true self, for the removal of dead weight, for the space they created that divine love could fill. They thought they were punishing you with their absence. They were actually promoting you with their departure. You're exactly where you were always meant to be. Chosen, elevated, untouchable, unreachable to those who proved unworthy. The universe removed them to make room for what's coming, and what's coming is so much bigger than what left. You were always the best. Now everyone knows it, including finally, fully, completely, you. The story ends where it begins, with them scrolling through your life with trembling fingers. But now you understand the full picture. They're not just witnessing your glow-up. They're witnessing their own fumble. They're not just seeing your evolution. They're seeing their own devolution. They're not just watching you win. They're watching themselves lose, every single day. And you're not even watching. You're too busy living the life they could have shared, too busy being the person they could have grown with, too busy embodying the love they could have received, too busy existing in the peace they could have experienced. You're too busy being the best to notice them realizing they lost the best. That's the ultimate plot twist. They thought leaving would destroy you. Instead, it deployed you. They thought abandoning you would abandon you to misery. Instead, it abandoned you to mystery. The mystery of how much power you actually held, how much light you actually carried, how much love you actually were. Forever is yours now, not theirs. They gave up forever temporarily, traded eternal for momentary, exchanged lasting for fleeting. Now they get to live with that exchange rate, that poor investment, that bad trade, while you get to live with the truth that everyone they asked already knew. You were the best, you are the best, you will always be the best. And now finally, beautifully, powerfully, you know it too. That's your victory, that's your vindication, that's your vengeance without trying. You know your worth now, and that knowledge has made you priceless, made you unreachable, made you exactly what you were always meant to be.